Let's see, due to the virtual format of today's meeting, I'd like to start by providing some guidelines. We have participants attending by phone and video. And for all meeting attendees, please, I should turn my phone off. Please speak clearly and pause frequently. State your name each time before speaking. Mute your microphone when not speaking. Use call-in information in the meeting invite to call into the meeting if you're having technical issues. So with that, since we've called to order, I would like to now begin. And for commissioners, I'd like to remind you that as we're going through the meeting, to use the chat to indicate if you would like to speak. And I guess I better turn my chat on. I hadn't done that yet. And if you'd like to ask a question or a comment, and wait, and I'll acknowledge you. Please do not put any substantive comments in the chat. We'll ask you to provide those verbally. I think there might be one commissioner or board member on the phone. If you're on the phone, please identify yourself as we go through the roll call, and we'll check in intermittently to see if you have things that you would like to provide comments on or questions. You can also press *3 to raise your hand. And I assume one of the city staff's monitoring the *3 to help us out with that one. So that helps. Since we are taking action, there may be public comments that people want to provide. They're an important part of the public process, and we take them seriously and factor them into all the decisions we make. For members of the public joining us, welcome. If you'd like to make comments, please press *3 on your phone at the appropriate time when we ask for comments. We'll then call the last 2 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to make comments. When recognized, please unmute your microphone. *6 may be what you have to do on your phone, and if we need reminders, I think there are people here that can help you. State your name, address, and relationship to the city. Are you a resident, property owner, business owner? Speak clearly and pause frequently. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes, and mute your microphone when you're done. If you do not respond to your name or phone number when it is called, or if your connection is lost unexpectedly, the meeting will need to proceed. You are encouraged to rejoin the meeting when you are able. And with that little script, I think we're ready to do the call to order. So at this point, I'm going to do a roll call, and when I call your name, I'm going to ask you to say here or something appropriate along those lines, and we'll find out who's actually here and how many alternates we'll actually need. So we'll begin, and as we know, I'm Nancy Davidson, and I'm here. Jamie, are you here?
Here.
Cameron Fisher.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Rishi will not be here tonight. He's asked for an alternate, and we'll call them, and that will be Surya tonight. And if I butcher your names, please learn that I will probably in a couple of meetings have it down pat. Dan, are you here?
Here.
Thank you. Laura, are you joining us? Are you on your phone? Laura?
Actually, Nancy, this is Tisha, Deputy Clerk. It looks like that is Laura. Let me send her a real quick request to unmute. Laura, you're going to need to, or whoever our phone and caller is, you're going to need to press *6 on your phone, and you may also need to unmute.
Hey, I'm unmuted. This is Laura.
Oh, great. Thank you. Danny, are you joining us today?
Hi, here.
Thank you. Don McWilliams.
Here.
Great. Ann?
Hello.
Yes. And then serving for Rishi is Surya. Surya, are you joining us today? An alternate.
Hi.
Hi. And then we have a couple alternates here. Janet, are you joining us tonight? Hi, Janet. And Tom Anderson.
Here.
Great. Thank you very much. Great. We do have a quorum, it appears, so we're good there. Sorry, I got to shuffle papers along the way. So our first order of business is the approval of minutes. I assume everyone has had an opportunity to review them. At this point, I'd like to see if anybody has any comments to make on the minutes from the meeting for January 27th. Any comments? Seeing none, I'm assuming that they are approved. I can just say they're approved at this point, correct? Yes, I want the city clerk's office to say yes. Great. Okay, I have a few reminders before we get into the business at hand, and this is something that came up, and I'm going to do it early because we got surprised last time by a couple of things. First of all, please no emojis. I don't know if they're turned off, but I hope they are. Not supposed to use those. Last time, a few of us lost the internet during the course of the meeting, including the chair and the vice chair. In the event that happens, which could happen at some point, someone like the city officials that are on, city staff that are on here will try to take it over. If they too are lost, you guys need to figure out someone to take over the meeting. We will call in and try and find a way to get back in. If you lose the quorum, which is what, 5 members, active members, then the meeting is automatically canceled and someone needs to cancel and adjourn the meeting. You know, we were surprised in our first meeting that we lost it. We were fortunate that it was only a minute or two for Jamie and I to get back on, but please keep that in mind. I just wanted to go over that so we all understood that we all have to step up when things like that happen. The last thing I want to talk about is quickly, we kind of had a meeting with Megan last week, and we're hoping if there's something that needs a motion that's kind of odd, such as in the EV ordinance, there was a lot of action. We didn't take any actions, but there were a lot of discussion that could have led to motions. If you know about a motion that you plan to make, please try and get it to Megan the day before the meeting on Tuesday so we can read it and they actually get it down. If it comes up in the course of the comments or discussion, if something changes and you want to make a motion that you're not prepared for the night before, that's perfectly fine. But we may ask you to repeat it a couple of times just so we get it down and can take it down. So those are just a couple of comments that we're learning along the way. So those are just some reminders. Did I do okay? Everybody with me still? Okay. All right, with this point, I'm going to turn it over for public comments. Do we have anyone on the? I think you have to hit star or something.
Nancy, this is the Deputy City Clerk, Tisha, again, and I am taking another quick look here, but at this time it doesn't appear that we have any members of the public on the phone with us tonight, and I can confirm that that's the case. Okay.
Well, with that, we'll close the public comments at this time and we'll move on into agenda items. And the first one is the adoption of rules and regulations for the board. And Tisha, this one's yours. So we'll turn it over to you and I'll mute myself.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Get my bearings. Okay. Great. So you all looked at your rules and regulations at the last, no, not at the last meeting, at your first meeting in January. And there are no, there were some great questions, and I think largely it was, informational for you to be aware of some of your duties and some of the procedures around your participation as a board member. So tonight, the same version of the rules and regulations were provided in the agenda. And after, I'm going to just have I have a few things I'd like to touch on real quick, and then it would be wonderful to have a motion to adopt the rules, and I can put the wording of that motion in the chat for someone to make, and then someone else will need to second that motion. And I see, because I'm talking on this subject, and I see that Anne has a couple of questions. Anne, do you want to, well, I guess if the chair is willing, I'd be happy to answer Anne's questions if she wanted to verbalize those.
Please move forward with that, answer the questions. That'd be great.
Okay, Anne, could you please unmute and ask your questions?
Sure. I just want to clarify what would be considered a motion. Do we need to state I move? Because I felt like we were having a lot of conversation last time, but I didn't really hear anybody say I move this, although we were making statements. So I'm curious as to what exactly a motion would be.
Yeah, that is a really good question. And so as the board has more items coming before it for recommendation, I think it's going to feel there's going to be more of a flow that that you'll become aware of. So at your last meeting, I believe you were providing that first level of input on the EV charging ordinance, right? But you weren't making your formal recommendation. You were providing some initial input. And then my understanding is Megan will be bringing that item back to you, and you'll be making a motion to approve a formal recommendation. I imagine she'll probably have something prepared in writing included in your agenda packet, and a motion will be needed. At the meeting that you had previously where you were providing informal input to help guide that recommendation, a motion isn't necessary. That was just discussion and feedback. So it's more when it comes time to make a formal official recommendation that a motion is needed. And then sometimes to kind of make adjustments to that formal recommendation can require motions as well. Is that?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure because I didn't remember there being any at the last meeting. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Tisha, can I add something on the agenda? When it says an A in the parentheses, that's an action item. So to do that, there needs to be a motion and a second for it. There's others that have Ds, which are discussion items or comment items, and that's all the EV ordinance was. But like tonight on the adoption of the board's rules and regulations, that's adoption, and therefore we'll take a motion and a second and vote on it.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. So my name, again, I'm Tisha Geezer. I'm the Deputy City Clerk, and also here tonight is the City Clerk, Tina Eggers, and Tina may jump in at any point over these next few slides and is also available for questions as well. So we're happy to see you again. So again, there were some great questions at the January meeting about the rules and regulations. And then again, a few questions have come into the clerk's office and via Megan since that time. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to respond to some of those questions, which have largely been about adding items to the agenda, bringing something to the board to consider. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about the board's work plan. And let me advance my slide here. And just kind of step back and just give you the big vision of, or I guess sort of process for how items come to the board. So this graphic here is intended to sort of just show you the relationship of the board scope in relation to some other aspects of the city. You'll notice at the top is a big green circle that says community input, and community input is sort of inserted sort of all through the layers of this graphic. But this kind of shows you what helps inform the city's annual budget and work plan, which in turn informs your work plan as a board related to environmental issues. I know there are also a few things in the board scope that are going to be kind of automatic that are considered every year, but much of your work plan is going to be based on the city's work plan in any given year. And I know from being part of that first meeting, you have a big one this year, and I anticipate for a number of years. So more specifically, we wanted to share a little bit about the city's annual budget process, and this is a real high-level overview here, but I think this is helpful and will help you think about, again, just that flow of work to the board and also to the city. So every summer, the mayor works with city staff to start developing her annual budget and looks to the strategic plan, which I should mention that the city's strategic plan is fairly new. It was adopted in May of 2019, and it was about a year-long effort that involved a lot of community input. Hopefully some of you had the opportunity to participate. And so the city is really excited to have that sort of guiding document. And so that is being used to help build the annual budget. The mayor's budget gets presented to the city council in the fall, and they, they review it and usually make some adjustments and then adopt it in November. And based on that approved budget, the city then can firm up its work plan for the year. And that also in turn helps determine what you as one of the advisory boards will be working on in the year to come. And then, it's this nice cycle because as you're reviewing and recommending items, they're in turn going back to the city council for them to consider and formally act. And one of the important pieces of this slide is also to help show you that as you as a board may gather consensus around some things you want to see the city doing in the future in the environmental realm, that it's important to think about sharing information and which will be presented to the mayor's office through Megan or potentially directly to the city administration. And then that information can be used to help in the next year's planning. And in the next slide, I'll show you some specific mechanisms you have as a board to really share your voice and vision for the city's environmental initiatives. So it's important, and I'm sure, I know this is already occurring. So this is just to reiterate that as you come across, I know there's a lot of knowledge in this group and passion. And as you come across issues that you think the city should be looking at or want us to consider, it's important to connect with Megan so that she can help you understand what might be going on in the city already, maybe reasons for why that item isn't before you at that time. She may be able to share a plan that's already in place, or maybe what you're interested in is something that's slated for a future year or is contingent on work being done in another part of the city. And then you are encouraged to, as a board, find consensus around things that you would like to see the city do in the future and have that documented in some way. So one of those ways is going to be through your recommendation reports. I saw in looking at your scope in our municipal code that you're actually tasked with helping the city plan for climate resiliency. So that's likely an item that will come to you where you'll get to help set the plan and priorities for that item. At other times, you might have something come to you, and the EV charging ordinance would be a good example, where you're being asked to weigh in on a specific set of requirements the city is considering. But maybe you as a board have something you would like the city to strongly consider in the future. The recommendation report that you'll be considering at one of your future meetings would be an opportunity for you to formalize that as a group. So that would be a case where someone on the board could propose a motion that might have a statement like, the board urges the city to explore such and such, and even a time frame. This is you just sharing your hope for the future. Another opportunity you have as a board to help relay potential future work plan items is your annual report, which will be shared with the mayor and city council annually. And so that's, again, another place you could formalize some thoughts. And then lastly, working with Megan, it may be that she can help facilitate a meeting with the city administration if there's something that you really want to learn more about or want some discussion on it. And that would be an appropriate time to have the chair or vice chair, represent the board in that way. So, and I'm hoping that Nancy, you'll let me know if you see any other questions. I'm just going to plow forward to my last slide here. So that what I was just talking about is really, again, just trying to give you a sense for how the work will come to the board and some mechanisms you have if you have a vision or desire that isn't currently before you to address. This last point here I wanted to make is just a bit of a technicality. As you are communicating with the city or other groups now that you are on this board, we just want to make sure that you understand how best to do that. So certainly if the board has made a decision, a formal recommendation, let's again say on the EV charging ordinance, and you want to represent the board as a member and share the recommendation, that's very appropriate. If the board has discussed something but hasn't settled on it, or maybe you have a minority opinion on the board, it will be important to preface comments or, sort of written emails or anything you're sharing as an individual interest. So a question came in about this, and we thought it was a great question. It's something we talked with the city council about, and they have some specific procedures in their rules. So again, just wanted to share that. With that, I'm going to take this slide down and just ask if there's any questions, or Tina, if you had anything you wanted to add.
Yes, Clerk Eger speaking. Thank you, Tisha. Great information. The only thing that I would add is that with your work plan, I believe Megan presented your draft board work plan at the first meeting in January, and it talked through your meeting dates and some of those items that would be in front of you through March. So for your future agendas, we would look for what we would call a planning calendar to be inserted on your agenda, and we see that the appropriate place for that would be under other business and announcements, because right there you have a place that talks about your upcoming meeting. And so it's a good document, and it's a good reminder to know what's coming next, what is your present work plan, and that document does build your agendas. So I just wanted to point that out. While you don't have one in your packet today, we will work with staff on being consistent with that in the future.
Okay, and with that, I am going to put a motion in the chat that someone is welcome to make. If there's any questions about anything Tina or I just spoke about or the document itself, please feel free. That's the end of our presentation.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments prior to moving forward with motions or on this? Please put it in the chat box so that we can track that. All right, I have one question, then I'll start this thing. The annual report, I assume that's prepared by staff, just because the chair is really not very excited to prepare it.
This is Tisha again. I think that you'll work through that process. I know in some of our other boards, often the staff is looking for guidance from you on the content of the report, but would play a role in assembling the information and putting it in that report format.
Great.
And yeah, Clerk Eger speaking. Ultimately, the board gets to approve the final version of that, so it will be an action item in front of the board.
Okay. Jamie has a question. Jamie?
This is Jamie speaking. I was curious about, I remember when Megan laid out kind of our work plan, it had every month's meeting, this is the thing that we're going to be working on or having to act on. I was curious how special meetings get identified within that. What is the process for a topic coming down the pike and there being a feeling that we might need to have a study session prior to having any action, kind of similar to with the EV ordinance. So I was curious how that process works.
This is Tisha. I think one thing, and Tina might have some information here too. I think what could be helpful, and one of the purposes of having that planning document Tina is talking about, is If you have concerns about the board reaching a decision in the time frame that's been planned by staff, it would be a good idea to share that perspective and see if other board members, and really in advance if possible. So there are often, these timelines can be complex. Often work that you're weighing in on has a path through other advisory boards in the city council. So that could also be a reason for a special meeting, right? If there's a timing consideration and the board wants some more time on an issue, that might necessitate a special meeting, or just, at this time, you do have a lot of work. You've been tending towards 2 meetings a month to help accommodate that. Tina, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Clerk Egger speaking. That's accurate. It really is what's the deadline driven timing for the item, and that itself will drive the need for special meetings. Or if there's just more discussion and you find that you need to continue the discussion, and then Megan will work with you on how that fits in and all the noticing that is required with that. So we'll make sure that you're successful.
Thank you. Very helpful. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments, please? With that, this is Nancy again, Davidson. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm looking for someone to make a motion, please. If you could say something in the chat, I would appreciate it so I can call on you. Jamie, please.
Jamie speaking. I move to adopt the rules and regulations as presented.
I need someone to second that, please. So could someone please put in there that they would like to second it? Cameron, please move forward.
I second Jamie's motion.
With that, is there any discussion on the motion that's been made? Hearing none, I need to take a vote. Now, I just have a question for the city clerk. Do we have to call each person's name to vote, or can we just check to see if it's unanimous? Tish, I need a little guidance here.
Okay, this is Tisha again. This is a great question and great item to ask that question on. A lot of times, if it feels like there's consensus, you could ask if there was any objection to approving the rules. And if no one objected, you could just state they were approved. But the rules actually require a majority of the full board to be adopted and amended. And so in that case, it's probably wise to take a roll call vote just to sort of just get that documented if you're willing, Chair.
I'm happy to do that, no problem. So here we go. First roll call vote.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Nancy, this is Tisha again. I'm gonna unmute Laura real quick so that she can voice her vote. Laura, you'll need to press *6 on your phone and may need to unmute your phone.
And while we're waiting for that, Clerk Egger speaking, I just want to remind the board that once a motion is made and seconded, this is your opportunity to speak up and discuss the motion. And if there were amendments that you were looking to make, this is your opportunity to do that. So I would caution you to pause and then, then proceed with your vote.
Thank you, Clerk Edgars. Appreciate that. So Laura, does anybody have any more comments or amendments or changes to this they'd like on the motion? Just checking in. With that, we're going to take a roll call vote on the motion on the floor, and that motion is to adopt the rules and regulations as presented. Laura, hopefully you can vote first since.
I don't know what word to say right now. Agreed.
Say aye. Aye or nay, right?
Aye.
Great. Jamie.
Aye.
Cameron.
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Danny. Danny?
Aye. Sorry, can you hear me?
Thank you. Dawn,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
and Surya.
Aye.
Am I saying your name correctly?
It's very close. It's Surya.
Surya. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate it. Okay. With that, we'll move on to our next agenda item.
Excuse me, Nancy,
Yes.
this is Tisha. Can I ask how you voted on,
Oh,
would like to vote?
I'm sorry. And the chair votes aye.
All right, and I was noting that, and I note that that was a vote of 9 in favor and 0 opposed. So the rules are adopted. Thank you.
Am I always supposed to say that's 9 in favor and or whatever and 1 opposed? And okay.
Yeah, yes, and actually, I think for future meetings, it would probably be wise to have a staff person call the roll so they can prompt you to vote as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback. As you all know, I am learning along the way to do this, especially in a Zoom setting. So it's new to me. So with that, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion item, and it's regarding the Ruth and Dan Kees and Community Award. And with that, Lipa, I think it's you.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so hello everyone. As you may know, my name is Lipa Bracilite, and I am an intern at the Office of Sustainability in Issaquah. Today, I will give you an overview of 2 awards that the city recognizes for environmental achievement and stewardship: the Ruth and Dan Kees Award for a Sustainable Environment and the Community Environmental Award. Afterwards, I will explain how interested environmental board members can get involved in the award decision process. So the first award is called the Ruth and Dan Kees Award for a Sustainable Environment, was created to honor the legacy of a lifelong environmental advocate in the Issaquah region. The award aims to recognize those community members who have demonstrated leadership and undertaken significant efforts which have resulted in clear benefits to the environment and long-term sustainability of the Issaquah community. The other award is called the Community Environmental Award, which is awarded to individuals, groups, and organizations whose achievements are noteworthy in their impact to the environment and benefit to the community. This award recognizes achievements that may be smaller in scale or vision, shorter in duration, or more localized in impact than the Ruth and Dan Kees Award. Criteria and eligibility for both awards is included in the information packet and on the nomination form itself. In the past, award recipients were recognized at a council meeting. Now that we have an environmental board, we plan to recognize the winners during one of our regular board meetings. Recipients will be honored with a special award commemorating their achievement during our April 14th board meeting. Recipients of the Ruth Kees Award will receive a tree planted in their honor and a $500 cash award, thanks to a generous endowment from the Ruth and Dan Kees estate. Recognition for the recipients' achievements will also be made in the mayor's report at a city council meeting and through city publications. Environmental board members can get involved in the award decision process by serving on the mayor's nomination committee, which will review award applications and provide input to the mayor. No more than 4 members are permitted in order to avoid quorum. Interested board members must notify Megan Curtis Murphy by February 19th if interested in participating on the nomination committee. Just so we're clear with the timeline, the nomination applications go out tomorrow for both awards. They will be published in the Insider, social media, and other venues and shared broadly with members of the community and, of course, the Environmental Board. Then on March 8th, all award nominations are due. Afterwards, the nomination committee will take a look at all the applications, discuss them with each other and with the mayor. Lastly, on April 14th, the award recipients will be announced in the Environmental Board meeting. Let me know if you have any questions.
So this is Nancy Davidson again, and we had a conversation, Jamie, myself, and Megan and Lipa, earlier this week. And what we'd like to propose is getting a subcommittee of the Environmental Board, so we do not have a quorum for this. So we're not actually taking a vote, to work with the mayor and her office and probably Megan on this. So it's kind of a surprise for whoever is nominated and ultimately selected. It's ultimately the mayor's decision, but I'm sure the environmental board's input will be carefully, or the environmental board members participating in this subcommittee's input will be highly considered when she's making her decisions. But the goal would be is, if you're interested, it will be a subcommittee up to about 4 members from what I understand. Are there any questions at this point that we'd like to ask of the administration? Jamie.
Jamie speaking. Liepa, do you know if the past recipients will be shared as part of the nomination packet or the materials that are going to be sent out?
I don't believe so. I'll ask that to Megan. If you do want a list of past recipients, the information is, I think I can share that, is something I can share. So I can get back to you with that in this week.
Okay, thank you.
If you could share that with the environmental board, all of the members, that would be great too. So just so that we all have it, please. We have a question from Danny. Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to, this is Danny. I just want to make sure that I understand it correctly. So we don't have to let Megan know if we're interested. It'll just be randomly selected members, or?
You should actually let Megan know. And the last day to let her know is February 19th. So it won't be a random selection. You'll have to email her and let her know. Yeah.
And this is Nancy again. Just as a reminder, it can only be 4 members of the environmental board to avoid a quorum. With that, we have another question from Dawn.
I have to unmute. Just a question on the process. You said that people get nominated. Are people allowed to self-nominate for this award?
Yes.
Okay.
Cameron, this is Nancy again. Cameron has a question.
Yeah, Cameron here. Question there, maybe to city staff. How many candidates are there on a that are typically nominated on these awards?
Usually about 3 to 5 per year. So not a big group.
Oops, excuse me, I had to unmute as well. Are there any other questions from the board? Jamie, you have another question?
This is Jamie, and this might be for city staff. A question around how subcommittees would typically convene, and maybe this is something that Megan will lay out. It's likely something she'll lay out, but just was curious generally how subcommittees would come together, at least on other commissions or boards.
Tisha, can you help?
Yeah, I can. So I believe what Liepa was sharing is the mayor's interested in getting a few members of the environmental board to serve on sort of an informal nominating committee that the mayor's convening. So it's not technically a committee or subcommittee of the board. It's a few board members volunteering to help her review those nominations. It may be in the future that the environmental board decides to appoint a subcommittee for a purpose. And as Nancy was explaining, the difference there is that then that board would be reporting back to the full board, and the full board would be making a recommendation. So this is a little different and a little bit more discreet. It allows those award nominees that their nomination to be kept, secret until the award can be announced.
Are there any other questions? This is Nancy again. So just a reminder to all the board members, please, if you're interested in helping the mayor with this and representing the board, please get your information to Megan by the 19th. And I see that Cameron had a question while I was answering that. So Cameron, I'll turn it over to you.
Cameron here. Sorry, Nancy, for the interruption. I just have one final question for Lipa. There are 2 awards, I understand, the Ruth and Dan Kees, and then the Community Award, Sustainability Award. Will the select group of 4 board members be working on both awards, or is it just one specific award?
I'll get back to you that later. I believe it's both, but I will confirm with you later this week. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Great. Well, that covers the agenda items we have for tonight. At this point, since we're not taking action on that, that was just a discussion item. I'm moving on to the 5th item in our agenda, which are reports. And the first report I'm going to need some help with is the equity convening that occurred. I think there were 2 sessions on it. We had Jamie, Danny, and Surya participate in it, and I'm not sure who's going to be reporting on this one. So I will turn that to Jamie to kind of at least tell me who that might be, because I know he was part of it. Thank you.
And I will turning over to Danny and Surya, because I think they were going to potentially tag team, but I'm not actually sure myself. So whichever one of you wants to start, go ahead.
This is Danny. I can start it off. So we went to both of them. I can talk more about the first one because I have a couple notes on that. But basically, it was super great. We kind of heard from a lot of, I think it was the Human Resources Commission, kind of on the work that they're doing around equity. And they have kind of laid out a plan for a new board. And then also we heard from several groups. One was from Issaquah High School, actually, and I think they're the Issaquah Equity Council, and they kind of talked about some of the awesome work that they've done, which is really cool to kind of hear from some of my fellow peers about, you know, how they're really trying to make our high school a better place. It was pretty nice. And also it was just great to, and also a lot of it was kind of like discussions on what does equity really mean in Issaquah, like what can we all try to do. And I know actually in the application for this board, one of the questions was kind of talking about how we will including equity in kind of like our decision making and our thinking. And you know, we also talked about it a lot in our last meeting, so it was really interesting to see where the larger community is at as far as equity. And it was yeah, and Surya can add to that, but that's kind of just.
And so the second week meeting went into more of the specifics of what they found throughout the community and what they heard throughout the community. I'll just summarize quickly their key points. Their first key point was that not everyone feels safe. They emphasized that the group around us may feel safe, but we have to pay attention to the reality that a lot of people in Issaquah don't feel safe. The second point was that racism exists, it's alive and well, and that was like stated explicitly. The third point was what really hurt people across the city were the microaggressions, the things that are prevalent on a daily basis, which creates those unsafe spaces and disrupts people's days. The fourth key point was that the school system needs innovation. Many people feel that they need to be supported by the school system, and that one is more targeted at the youth who are going through the system. Number 5 is community awareness on the issues that the issue of race is varied. People of color and non-people of color have experienced different issues, so that's a matter of not invalidating their voices in those issues. And then also in that point, there is a discussion around the small window of opportunity they had following the death of George Floyd, where there was this huge momentum going on to combat issues of race and specifically racial inequities. But there was a comment about needing to continue the momentum even past what occurred last year. So that's something that the new board will discuss. The risk of apathy and status quo was brought up. And then also the issue of homelessness and the large population of homelessness. And so one of the challenges that they left for all the boards across the city were to make sure that we hear the community, to take into account their voices, take into account maybe getting some focus groups in some of the decisions we make, especially if there's a lot of long-term implications with those decisions, but also having a long-term, and also making sure we all have a long-term commitment and a long-term mindset for whatever we discuss in this board and whatever action we take, because while dates are important, the long-term impact matters more. So yeah, that was a lot. I hope that made sense.
That was a great presentation, and thank you very much for participating in those convenings and bringing the feedback back to this board. I'm going to put you two on the spot, maybe Jamie as well. Does anybody have any questions for these three participants from the Environmental Board? Seeing no questions come up, I want to thank you all for participating, and we'll try and consider when we want to reach out to the community further. Hopefully Megan will be able to help us along the way with that. That would be great. The next report is that I was planning on hearing about is the discussion that occurred at the council study session last evening on the EV ordinance. Megan was planning on doing that, but Lipa, I think you're planning on doing it. And just as a side note, I too listened in on the conversation last night. So thank you.
Great, yeah. So last night, as Nancy just said, during the council study session, Megan presented on the electric vehicle charging ordinance. She shared feedback that we've gotten from the Planning Policy Commission and the Environmental Board, and the council members appreciated hearing all the perspectives and agreed with a lot of the feedback that they heard. And also, the city attorney included a memo on his legal opinion regarding single-family requirements, which will be included next time this comes to the board. In terms of next steps, the council requested the ordinance to go back to the Environmental Board for a formal recommendation in March. And a Planning Policy Commission public hearing also in March, and then return back to council for final action on April 5th. And this item will return to the board at the March 10th meeting, where we will fill out the recommendation report. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and this is Nancy Davidson again. If there's any questions, but I'd also encourage you, it was the last agenda item on the council study session last night. If you have a chance, it might be helpful to at least listen to that portion of it if you have time or feel so inclined. It was an interesting conversation from my perspective, but I would encourage you to do that. And are there questions regarding what happened last night? Seeing no questions come up. That concludes the reports at this time. I'm going to move into agenda item number 6, which is the other business and announcements. And the chair is going to take a little prerogative for a minute. Thank you for the encouragement, Anne, about how I'm doing running the meeting. I needed that. Thanks. Anyway, it's the first one. And without Megan here, I just wanted to point that out. Now let's talk about other business. We have some webinars that are coming up. There's 2 of them, one on the 20th, which is this Saturday, and one on the 27th regarding cities climate action. There's a climate action summit webinars. We were supposed to get feedback if you wanted to participate to Megan, and she gave us a date, which I'm sorry, I don't recall at this time. But there were 4 of us that had indicated an interest in participating in one or both of them. And I just wanted to check in, but the people that have indicated an interest is Anne has indicated an interest in participating in both, attending both. Laura Laura had asked to participate. I'm not sure if you wanted to go to one or both, and perhaps City Clerk, can you tag her up so she can talk and see what her interest was, please? Laura, are you there?
Yes, yes, lots of buttons here.
Would you like to participate in both of them? Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
I'm hoping to go to both of them if I could make it, yeah.
That'd be great. Jamie had indicated an interest in attending the second one, and I have an interest in participating in the first one. So at this point, we don't have enough people for a quorum for any of them. So I would encourage the 4 of us that have signed up and indicated an interest to please register for the webinars that are in your email that you've indicated an interest. If anyone else plans to attend, please send Megan and I an email, because we have to limit the number of participants from this board in those webinars to 4. However, they are going to be available later, I think on YouTube or something like that. And so that information will get out to you when we get it after the webinars have occurred. So you can go back and listen to those as well. So that's what I have to report on that one. With that, the only other business that I'm aware of, and then I'll ask if there's anybody else, is the agenda items that are coming up in March. Megan did send something out to us about that. Our March agenda items, even though it's not on our agenda, include us taking action on the EV ordinance. We're going to be talking, there's the background that Megan was not able to make today on the environmental stewardship and climate background that she was had sent out earlier, and she's going to present that to us. The storm and surface water master plan is supposed to be coming to us, and an NPDES report of activities. And NPDES is National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. Boy, I can remember that from my old working days. Anyway, there's a report on that. I don't know what that means, but there's a report. So those are the reports or other business and announcements I'm aware of. Does anyone else have anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, I want to thank those of you that let us know if you could or couldn't attend, even though you're not here. But please let myself and Jamie and Megan know if you're not going to be able to make it, so that we can get someone teed up as an alternate. We understand that happens at times. And with that, seeing no further business, do I have to take a motion to adjourn, or can I just adjourn the meeting? No motion needed. Okay. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and wish you all well and